Please note that in this show you might hear graphic descriptions or language that may not be appropriate for everyone. Listener discretion advised. Welcome to Parentless Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Releford. On this show, we're going to be speaking with others who have experienced the loss of one or both of their parents or parental figures. As we heard in episode 12 with Louisa Velarde, being parentless is like an island, and I don't know how to swim. Thank you for being my life jacket.
When I was in my 20s, I always had this fear my goal, I shouldn't say fear, my goal was to outlive my mom at 29. She died when she was 29 years old, and my goal was to outlive her. I made it to 30. I'm like, score, I outlived my mom. Well, then Dad dies the day before he turns 50. So I never really said anything about it to anybody, but just in the back of my mind, I'd always kind of, I'd like to outlive my parents, my dad too. I'd like to live to be 50. I think I finally mentioned it to Shelley once. And so when we woke up on the morning of my birthday, she gave me a big hug and kiss. She goes, well, you made it. You outlived your dad. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of wild, isn't it? She goes, yes, but I'm so thankful. I was so worried that you wouldn't make it. I don't know why she was worried. Just, that's what wives do, is worry. So I turned 50 on March 18th of this year, 2021. On April 10th, so 3.5 weeks later, I'm at work. I go to lunch. I come back from lunch. And I'm just not feeling good when I come back from lunch. I ate Panera, my favorite lunch, tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich there. And I walked to Panera and I'd walked back across the parking lot to work. And I'm inside actually with a customer. I currently sell phones for Verizon. And I'm setting up this customer's new phone. And my chest just was hurting. I'm like, well, indigestion. I've had lap band surgery, so my stomach has been tied down to where it's about the size of an egg. They use a zip tie to block it off. And then the opening out of that stomach, the size of an egg, going down into the rest of your stomach and intestinal tract is about the size of a number 2 pencil. Well, I ate way more food with a bowl of soup and a half a sandwich than what should fit in the size of an egg. And I was belching a lot, which I do because of the lap band. I'm like, oh, it's just gas. It's just indigestion. It'll go away in a little bit. But then all of a sudden, it's just like a gorilla sat down on my chest. It's like I couldn't breathe. I was like, of course, we were still wearing the masks at that time. And so I called a coworker. I said, hey, man, can you finish up this customer? I got to go outside and get some air. I'm not feeling good. So I went outside, took my mask off. I'm trying to take some deep breaths. And it's just not relieving. It's not getting any better. And then I started getting cold and clammy right along my hairline. I'm like, that's not good. So I call my wife. I tell her what's going on. She goes, you need to call 911 right now. I'm leaving. Want me to go? I'll meet you at the hospital. Okay. So I call 911. Ambulance shows up. They assess me, put me in the ambulance, and haul me to the hospital. In the ambulance, they give me 5 baby aspirin and a nitroglycerin. Chew up the baby aspirin, put the nitroglycerin under your tongue, just so y'all know how that works. By the time I got to the ER at the hospital in Manhattan, the pain had come way, way, way down with the aspirin and the nitro. But the ER doctor took one look at me and gave me a shot of some sort of a clot buster to break up any blood clots that I might have that could be causing this pain. He goes, dude, you got to go to Topeka, man. We got to get you there now. So another ambulance came, picked me up, and took me 40 miles to Topeka. Wheeled me into the ER there, and it's like I rolled in. It's like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And I just kept going. and went right into the stent lab, where they punctured my wrist and put 2 stents in the main artery up and down the front of your heart. For those who don't know, a heart attack involving that artery is called a widowmaker. Most people don't survive those kind of heart attacks. Because I knew the signs from my previous work, I caught it quick enough. I survived it. So after they put the stents in, I'm feeling good. They don't even knock you out to do that, by the way. I was wide awake the whole time. The guy put the needle in here, went all the way up my arm, across my chest, put those stents in, pulls it all back out, says, okay, I'm all done. You're good to go. I checked everything else while I'm in there. You didn't have any other blockages. You just had that one blockage and we fixed it. You should be good. Sweet. So I go upstairs to ICU. And I lost track of time. I don't know what time it was by the time we got out of cath lab and went upstairs. But it must have been fairly late, 9 or 10. I don't know. Anyway, shortly after midnight, I coded, meaning I died. Couldn't get a pulse, couldn't get a heartbeat. They worked on me for over an hour before they finally got a heartbeat back. They told my wife, they came out to her and said, I don't know how much longer we can do this. We're not getting anywhere. We're not getting any response from him. And, at some point we're going to have to let him go. Well, I don't have a DNR, so they couldn't stop. They had to keep going. And so she's sitting out there in the hallway having to make these decisions all by herself. And she told me later, well, I think it was when you were here visiting, she told the story about how she prayed and said, Lord, I don't want him to go, but if it's your will that you need him, I'm okay. You can take him. And she said a peace came over her. And it's okay. Everything's going to be all right. And she goes, it was like 5 minutes later, they come out and said, we got a good, strong pulse. Well, being gone for an hour, my kidneys had shut down. So then they had to put me on dialysis, full-time dialysis, and hope that they could jumpstart my kidneys. I don't know how much longer it was. It was another half hour later, I coded a second time, but this time only for about a half an hour. They brought me back, and then they put me in a medically induced coma. Well, during those 2 codes, I remember those guys giving me CPR. I remember them shocking me with the AED. It was like I was removed from my body, standing in the corner, watching them work on me. I couldn't see faces, but I could hear voices, and I could see shapes of bodies. And I could hear them say, switch, and somebody else would start doing CPR, and then switch, and somebody else would start. I heard all of that. When they shocked me with the AED, I saw my body come up off of the table. And I felt the AED. Oh, my goodness. You want to talk about something that hurts. Let me tell you, that's a shock.
Wow.
Yes. So then, and I don't know when this was, if it was after the first code, after the second code, but I'm in bed, and I swear this pretty nurse sits down on the side of my bed and pats me on the leg and says, Bruce, we love you. And I patted her back on her leg and said, well, I love you too. And this is all while I'm out. So I didn't see this person. I just had this conversation with her. And so later I'm telling Shelly, kind of feeling guilty because I patted this other woman on the leg. And she just starts laughing. I said, what are you laughing at? She goes, honey, I was in your room the entire time they were working on you, and there was never a nurse that sat down on the edge of your bed, ever. I said, yeah, there was. She goes, no, there wasn't. So I just kind of okay, I was out of it. I don't know what was going on. So then I'm telling the same story to our sister, Sherry. And boom, like that, she goes, you know who that was, Bruce? I said, well, obviously nobody, because Shelly was there and said nobody was there. She goes, that was Mom. She was your guardian angel that night. She was there to watch over you and make sure you were okay. And it just hit me. It's like, oh my goodness, that does really happen. And it just sent chills down my spine. And, since then, I've thought several times, well, at least Mom must be proud of me because she wanted to be there to comfort me.
Mm.
If you're not proud of somebody, why would you go comfort them?
Right.
You might not try to do anything vindictive, but you wouldn't go do something special or nice like that. So anyway, it just kind of hit me. Wow. And then Monday when they brought me out of the coma, doctors start coming in and they're looking at me and they're shaking their head and they're like, we don't know how you're here. You are an absolute miracle. And I said, yeah, thank you very much for all you did to help me be a miracle. Obviously, the Lord's not through with me yet. He has something else he needs me to do, or he would have taken me. But there's a couple of one really other oddity that I find extremely strange in that situation. My previous job, I used to sell first aid and safety supplies. We'd sell training. We had to do first aid CPR training every year to stay certified. And during that training, we always talked about heart attacks and symptoms and how you give CPR and what's the proper way. And well, one of the things they teach is when you have to give CPR, if you don't hear bone break, you're not doing it right. You're not getting enough compression if you don't hear bones break. Mm-hmm. So remember, they gave me CPR for an hour and a half. They kept the blood flowing well enough and oxygenated enough. I had no memory loss, no brain defunction, none of that, because they kept the oxygen moving in the blood. But they never broke a rib. Not a single rib was broken. How did that happen? There's a much higher power that was there with me that night. I mean, I just have to believe that. So anyway, I spent 12 days in the hospital and was able to come home then. And I've been back a couple of times for little things, nothing major. I've had nose chest pain since my heart attack. It's kind of funny. That's what they all ask. You have any chest pain? No, but I have this pain and this pain and this pain and this pain, but nothing in my chest, man. My chest is cool. It feels good. It's just so funny to say it, but that's my near-death experience and story, and I'm just thankful to still be here as a parent. And I was able to heal well enough that I was able to be on stage and hand my son his diploma when he graduated high school and be there for my daughter's 8th grade promotion to high school. It's kind of funny. When I was in the hospital, doctor's like, oh man, you're a miracle. I said, forget the miracle. Am I going to be able to be out here by May 22nd for graduation? Oh, you should be out of here by then. No. Am I going to be? I was very adamant. They're like, yeah, you should be out of here. And they got me out and I was able to be there and, make those memories that Dad never got to make with you and Brian. And, those are important memories too for those that are left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's super interesting. Like I knew that you had a birthday, but I didn't realize that it was the big 5-0. And then when Sherry called me, she said, Bruce called me and told me he's having a heart attack. And so I said, oh, well, he's calling people. He's calling people. He's probably, that's a good sign.
So everybody thought I was absolutely crazy. They didn't take my cell phone away from me. I was feeling fine in the ambulance all the way from Manhattan to Topeka, which is 40 miles. I'm on the phone in the back of the ambulance. I'm calling all my friends. I'm calling the superintendent of school district because I'm on the school board. I'm calling my school board members. I'm calling everybody, telling them, hey, I'm in an ambulance. I'm on my way to Topeka. I just had a heart attack. Just want you to know. And everybody's like, dude, you are flat crazy. You shouldn't be worried about stuff like that. What else am I going to do, man? I'm laying there strapped down to a bed. I can't do anything else. I'm feeling fine now. I just want to be doing something productive.
Parentless Podcast is recorded in Phoenix, Arizona. Find us on social media and most major podcast platforms. Music provided by Coleman and the Revolving Birds. Studio and editing provided by Back Home Media and Ian Releford. Check out one of the many shows on our network. I am your host, Stephanie Releford.